Good afternoon and welcome to the 22nd meeting of 2020 of the Finance and Constitution Committee. The only item on our agenda today is to take evidence on the UK Internal Market Bill. That will be taking evidence from the Right Honourable Michael Gove MP, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. We're required to conclude this particular session by 4:30 and members have been asked to keep their questions succinct. Can I therefore ask Mr Gove if he could do the same with his answers? In saying that, I warmly welcome Mr Gove to our meeting and invite him to make a short opening statement should he wish to do so.
Thank you very much, Convener. It's very kind of you to invite me to answer questions today, and I'm very happy to move straight to the question and answer session. And I'm very grateful to you for making it so easy for us to have this session virtually today.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you, Minister. Minister, we've heard a lot of substantial and wide-ranging issues raised with us about fundamental questions about the impact of the bill on devolution. Let me give you three quick examples. Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee have said that proposals in the Internal Market White Paper to set in law the principles of mutual recognition and non-discrimination will effectively create new reservations in areas of devolved competence. Professor Michael Dugan, University of Liverpool, told us the operation of the UK internal market has real potential to limit the capacity of devolved institutions to pursue different economic or social choices from those made in London. And the National Farmers Union in Scotland told us the mutual recognition and non-discrimination proposals would in effect drive a coach and horses through the concept of commonly agreed frameworks. Are they not correct? And how will the UK government address these concerns? Mr Gove.
Well, thank you very much, Convener. That goes to the heart of what I know is a live debate. But the UK Internal Market Bill, combined, of course, with the additional powers that the Scottish Parliament and other devolved legislatures gain as a result of our departure from the European Union, results in a net accretion of power to the Scottish Parliament. It's a power surge. And as a result of this combination of measures, the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government will be stronger within the framework of the United Kingdom.
So all these people I've just talked about, and you'll hear more, are wrong.
Well, one of the things about the National Farmers Union is that it's supportive, as I understand it, of the principle of an internal market, and it believes quite rightly that it's important that high-quality Scottish produce should have unfettered access to the rest of the United Kingdom. We need to ensure that, and we can do that through both common frameworks and the bill.
So the wide-ranging concerns that have been expressed by many organisations, you'll hear a bit more this afternoon, are going to be ignored, Mr Gove.
No, I think we take account of every concern, but some of them I think are misplaced. There's been some misinformation and myth-making about the legislation. I think it's important to recognise that while the whole United Kingdom was in the European Union, the operation of all of our legislatures was constrained by EU law. Now that we're outside, all of the legislatures will have more power.
Okay, I'm sure some of the rest of my colleagues will want to pick up on that, but I want to deal with one of the UK amendments, which if passed would mean that a manner of sale requirements not within the scope of the mutual recognition principle. However, that's only part of the picture, is it not? Our committee advisor points out in relation to minimum pricing per unit for alcohol, for example, the restrictions on prices will still be subject to the non-discrimination principle, and in particular, the proportionality principle that protected the Scottish scheme for minimum unit pricing for alcohol is noticeably absent from the bill. Is this amendment therefore not an overt admission by the UK government that despite the protestations to the contrary, that minimum unit pricing was not covered by the bill, it always was, and this amendment might not even have the effect of protecting minimum unit pricing if any significant changes are required to it?
No, I disagree with that. I think the first thing to say is that when the Scottish Government wanted to introduce minimum unit pricing, of course, it was challenged under European law. Of course, minimum unit pricing was secured. It would never have been threatened by this legislation. But given the concerns that have been raised, we saw that there was no harm in putting in capital letters, as it were, that guarantee. Now, of course, if the Scottish Government applied minimum unit pricing, or indeed the UK Government applied minimum unit pricing in England in a way that was discriminatory, if we said, for example, that alcoholic drinks that were produced in England would be subject to a different pricing mechanism to alcoholic drinks that were manufactured or produced or distilled in Scotland or Wales. That would be covered by the bill. But the principle of minimum unit pricing and the idea that wherever alcohol is produced, if it's sold in Scotland, then there needs to be that regulation in place, is not, never was, and never will be harmed by this legislation.
So is that you then, in these circumstances, Mr. Gove, accepting that if the bill's amended in this way, that any substantive changes to the current minimum unit pricing for alcohol could be challenged on the basis of non-discrimination principle?
No, not current practice. But were it to be the case, purely for the sake of argument, that the Welsh Government were to say that whisky produced in Scotland were to have a different minimum alcohol unit price than whisky produced in Wales, then that could be contested. But if the Welsh Government said that all whisky in Wales has to be subject to minimum unit alcohol pricing, then it could do so and it could set the price as it wishes.
Well, I think there'll be a bit of debate to go on about that as we move on, Mr. Gove. Mr. Murdo Fraser, please.